Welcome to the Rock Music Alliance interview sessions. I'm your host, Cole Coleman, along with keyboardist Claudio Pesavento from Mahogany Rush and the Chris Squire Band. On our show today, you know her bass playing from Demi Lovato, Dove Cameron, Marina, Big Time Rush, and more. Welcome to our show, Leanne Bose.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, the first thing I love to ask people is just what's the latest news from your world? Any recording going on or tours being planned or new artists that you're working with?
Yeah, so a couple things with Demi are happening this year. We've got some summer festivals going on. So we'll be in Ohio and New Jersey, I believe, later this year. So that'll be exciting. I am also working on my own music. I have a side project that is my pseudonym Bad Ways. So I am working a little bit on getting some new releases out for that. Um, I'm also personally learning some music production on the side. I'm taking a course right now to better kind of hone my production skills because, as we'll talk about, I've moved more into band leading and musical directing. So production is something that kind of adds to that, but also gives me an option in the studio. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Right. I know you mentioned your own release there. So Bad
Yeah.
Ways. So you can find Leanne under the name Bad Ways, and you had a release in 2022, right?
Yes.
Right. Tell us
Yeah. So that
tell
was
us a
my
little bit about that.
first single. Yeah. These are songs that I think a lot of musicians had this kind of experience when we were on lockdown and all the tours were getting canceled and the shows were getting canceled. I kind of finally had the opportunity to work on my own music where, my passion really lies in playing with other people. That's always been my focus. That's always been the career choice of mine is hired gun for other artists. That's really what I like to do. But obviously, as a creative, there are songs in my head and things that I wanted to put out on my own, but just really haven't had the time to focus on that. So 2020 was the opportunity for everyone to kind of just play around in their home studios. And that was that for me. And yeah, Bad Ways is sort of kind of dark, kind of 90s industrial kind of sounding grunge rock, I would say. And that is, like you said, my first release was in 2022. That was a single release. And now, yeah, I'm kind of just there's a couple other songs I've been sitting on and I'm putting those out in this downtime. We finished our US tour with Demi at the end of last year, in December. So now we have a little bit of time before the next couple of shows, which again is just the perfect time for me to work on that.
Sounds terrific. And the style of your release definitely sounds like something I enjoy. So I've got to go check that out
Cool.
for sure in more detail.
Yeah,
And I wanted to
definitely.
ask, as band leader for Demi Lovato, is that more like an organizational thing, like running schedules, or are you responsible for the arrangements?
It's both. So the way it kind of works, I think, typically in the pop world, which is how it worked with Demi at first, was we had our musical director for the show. His name was Stacey Jones. He's also the drummer for Miley Cyrus, and he's super talented. I love working with him. And he is the one that brought the band together initially. So he was the one that chose me. He chose the other players. So when we got in the group, that was when I was promoted to band leader. And so in the role as band leader, basically you kind of take over the MD duties once you leave rehearsals. Once you're on the road, since obviously our musical director isn't just traveling with us, he's not, in the band, he's not in the project. So he stayed home and I was responsible for arrangements on the road. Plus, like you're saying, the organizational stuff. I'm basically the mouthpiece for the band and vice versa. If there are things coming down from Demi's management, those are things I typically would be disseminating to the band members and having conversations and meetings in that way. So it's definitely both. I also, we just did a gig in Dubai. And I was the musical director on that. I was the one doing all of the arranging and everything from square one for that particular show. So yeah, it's a mix of both.
That's terrific. It sounds like quite a job, really, quite a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is definitely.
Sounds great. Well, one thing I wanted to find out was when you guys are performing in Demi Lovato's band, was she on this particular tour, was she pulling songs from her career? Because I noticed she's like all over the place, I think, like style
Yeah.
wise, right? So, or
Yes.
did they just focus on the most current release?
Yeah, that's a great question. So she really is all over the place. I mean, if you look at a song, let alone the recent album. So Holy Fuck was her release last year. That was her album, and that is, a totally new style for her as far as her, popular releases. So if you compare that to Heart Attack or something she released maybe 5 years ago, it's a lot different. If you compare it to her first album, interestingly enough, it's not that different, but there is just stylistically a lot of differences. But both do have that more of a rock edge. But that being said, the way we tackled that, and this was Stacy at the beginning, our musical director. We basically rearranged the old songs to fit this new rock sound. So we were doing, breakdowns in her pop songs, and we were doing, Nita had all kinds of guitar solos in Sorry Not Sorry, which if you hear that song on the radio, there's definitely no guitar solos in Sorry Not Sorry. It's a straight up, pop song. So that was really, really fun for us in those beginning rehearsals of kind of collaborating and getting to make them rock. And the band itself, we all come from a rock background. So finding this like pop gig where we get to solo and headbang and, put breakdowns in the middle of a pop song, it was really kismet for all of us. We all felt just like, oh my gosh, this is our gig. This is so cool. So yeah, to answer your question, we did her whole catalog, but we tweaked the style to be more current with her current release.
So do you think that Demi is settling into this style? Like, is she finding herself now?
Yes, definitely. I think Demi has always liked, maybe heavier music, a little bit of metal. And now she's finally giving herself kind of that creative license to not necessarily just do what the big popular radio hit is. And that's not to say rock is not, popular now, but it's not about chasing, the big Katy Perry hit right now for her. It's really about getting to explore her creativity, which is really fun.
Definitely. And definitely where you want to be as an artist, to be able to
Yes.
express yourself in that way. Yeah. Back on your release, did you play all the instruments on it, or did you have some guest musicians on there?
I did play everything on that release. So I yeah, the release I did in 2022, I programmed the drums, I played guitar, I played bass, and I sang on that. So yeah, that's another reason it's fun for me to do those releases, is because I do get to kind of tinker around with my other instruments. So yeah, it was all me.
Very cool. Very cool. Hey, Claudio, have you ever toured to Dubai in your day?
No, no, not to Dubai, but I went to Morocco, all those places in the, North
Yeah,
Africa.
Mm.
yeah, Claudio, as playing for so many different people, he's also toured most of the world, but I guess not hadn't quite reached Dubai.
Yeah,
No,
well, it's really getting more popular in the last 10 years or so. It's a completely different place
they
than it was
have
even 20 years
they
ago.
they have a lot of money there, so they can bring many bands, so whoever you want.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have noticed a
If
lot
you
more people getting booked
if you
over there.
have
Yeah.
if you have a birthday party, you can hire Madonna for one day, just like at the palace.
Yes.
Right?
So, Leanne, take us back in time. How did you get into music, and why choose the bass?
Yeah. So my dad was a drummer growing up. And that being said, so he was kind of the musician in the family. He came from a musical family. But he was a hobbyist. I mean, this was something he had a full-time job and would just play on the weekends, for some money probably, but local bar gig kind of stuff. And my mom was not a musician, but she was very passionate about music. I grew up with awesome CDs in the house. I grew up with, everything from Nine Inch Nails, Led Zeppelin, everything in the 90s and earlier was just like stocked, my whole CD collection in my home. So I grew up around a lot of music, and my dad was always drumming for fun. He had a drum kit in the basement, but he was multi-instrumentalist as well. So he would, go around to yard sales and buy like, oh, there's a bass here, there's a guitar here. And so, yeah, I mean, when I was about 12 years old, he was kind of having fun with MIDI recording and kind of learning how to record at home, just again, as a hobbyist. And he was like, let's try playing together. Like, I'm going to play drums and you play bass. And I was like, I've never played this thing, but I was interested in music. I played clarinet, I sang, I did all the, little kid band stuff. So he handed me the bass, and we learned So Lonely by the Police together and just sort of like recorded it together for the first time. And I truly just like don't remember putting the bass down after that. It was just like I learned everything I could in the house, just soaking it in, just playing everything. I just didn't stop. And so at that time, even, I mean, I saw it as a hobby as well, just because that's what I was kind of raised around. Like, oh, music is, just for fun. And not until like I went to school for marketing and way later in life, it was kind of the realization that life is short and this is my passion. And my dad actually passed away in 2011. He had cancer, and it was obviously heartbreaking. And it was seeing him work so hard at a day job and never really get to do what he loved that really inspired me. I was like, this is it. It's time to just try this and see if I can make this a career. So that was it. Like I said, it never really, until really pretty late in life, I would say, it didn't occur to me to really just try this as a career, but it's surprisingly working out.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear your father passed away. I was hoping to hear that he was enjoying your current success,
He would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how about your mom?
Oh yeah, she's thrilled. I mean, she's always seen this, for me as she's sort of always seen my passion for music. So seeing me get to do this, she knows it's just, kind of meant to be for me. And, my parents were divorced at the time of my dad's death, but they were still close. And so I think it's almost the same for her as seeing my dad kind of not even get to do what he loved. I'm kind of carrying on that legacy, and I'm pretty sure she sees it that way as well.
Yeah, exactly. His legacy is living on through you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's great is he was training you from a young age,
Yes.
He was training you to become what you're becoming.
Yes,
Yeah.
when I look back and that when I have to learn a new set, for whatever band I'm playing with, it's the same muscles I'm using in my brain as sitting there learning, the whole Led Zeppelin CD, Physical Graffiti, sitting there learning it, it's the same thing as, right before I get on stage, I'm learning these songs. So I really was figuring it out from a young age.
So where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
Yeah, I was born in Connecticut, near Danbury, Connecticut. So relatively close to New York. I lived in New York for a while and Boston, before moving out to Los Angeles. So, in Connecticut, it was not a lot in the music scene. Of course, it was a quick trip to New York, but even that for me, wasn't the scene I was really looking for. New York, obviously, it's a lot of jazz and it's a lot of musical theater. And for me, I don't feel confident in my jazz abilities. I'm obviously self-taught, not that you can't teach yourself jazz, but I do feel like my strengths lie more like we're talking about in learning songs and being an organized leader and kind of doing that type of work, which LA is all about. It's getting these pop gigs and getting to kind of tour with different people rather than necessarily, having a residency at a jazz club or playing for musical theater.
So beyond your dad teaching you, you were teaching yourself. Was there any private teaching going on at all, or?
No, I never actually was taught. I never took lessons and I didn't go to school. It's something I do think about now, just in some spare time. I am learning production now, but learning theory and kind of getting a more formal training is definitely something I think about. But I am self-taught.
Yeah, chord changes, right?
Yes.
That's what I learned, well, to play chord changes because I play by ear too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good to know the chord changes
Mm-hmm.
when you have to read side, like it just.
Yeah, I think I've learned what I need obviously to get to this point. But I think just having an even deeper understanding sounds interesting to me.
Especially for jazz, like
Mm-hmm.
jazz have a lot of chord changes, so you have to really.
Yes, definitely.
So you mentioned where you grew up, not much happening music wise, and New York is about jazz. Was there any music scene at all anywhere when you were like a teenager, or young, like just turning 21? Any music scene that you were able to join into?
Yeah, of course there was covers. That was definitely something I was doing. I was, a 15-year-old girl joining bands of 50-year-old guys doing their cover gigs at the local bars. That was definitely something I was doing at the time. Yeah, I had my bands for fun. We would, do little kind of tours just up and down, maybe New York, Boston, just local shows. I mean, in New Haven, Connecticut, there was Toad's Place. That was definitely a really kind of historic venue, and people would come through. So I got to see a lot of shows. But there weren't a lot of young people, I would say, in Connecticut really chasing that dream necessarily. You'd kind of have to go to New York or elsewhere to get that in Connecticut.
So at what point and what band were you in that got the opportunity to record with Linda Perry?
Yeah, that was really exciting. So that was like we were kind of talking about in the timeline. It was after my dad passed. I was like, okay, this is time to really maybe try this and kind of put more focus on what is my passion. So just very, very lucky fate situation. This band Hunter Valentine was looking for a bass player, and they were really having a good run of their career at that time. They had been on a TV show called The Real L Word. They were touring. We, as soon as I joined with them, I auditioned and got the gig. We went down to South by Southwest. We opened for Linda Perry. We opened for Cyndi Lauper for a tour, 2 tours actually, and for Sum 41. And it was this great. I mean, it was like 0 to 60 for me. It was just like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously, and boom, I was off. And so that was lucky. And they were a New York-based band, so that was for me. To audition, I had to drive just a couple hours down to them. So they had the opportunity to be on Linda Perry's reality show called the Linda Perry Project. And through that, we were brought into the studio and got to record a single with Linda Perry. It was incredible. It was my first time in LA. This was in like 2014. Yeah, and we got to record with her. It was an incredible experience, and everything with that band. I mean, that was like my first introduction to van touring and bus touring and international touring. Like they just took me, like I said, 0 to 60. It was like I was just kind of just doing it for fun till I joined Hunter Valentine.
Sounds great. Sounds
Nice.
great. So with all that going on, I heard you mention doing a marketing degree. So with all this going on for you at this point in time, sounds like you're already pretty successful and pretty launched on your way. So then why go to Emerson and pursue a marketing degree?
Yeah, so Emerson was actually right before this. This was in my timeline. This was 2011 that I got joined up with Hunter Valentine. So I had just graduated from Emerson with my marketing degree. That was something before I really was committing to music as a career. Marketing was something I was passionate about, and so I was like, this is a good job. I'll have a good job. It'll be lucrative. And always just like, oh, music is just for fun. I'm like doing my degree and I'm just like playing around the local scene just for fun. And so I got that degree, thought about going into advertising, instead took music off, and it's been great. But I will say it's been really lucky to have that degree. I mean, it has been, obviously, as you guys know, it's like being a musician, you're constantly marketing yourself, you're constantly auditioning, you're constantly sending emails, you're constantly just like the face of your business. And so I believe, my work as band leader and musical director, I think a lot of that comes from my background in marketing. I think it's me being able to stay organized and communicate very effectively and clearly, that I learned through Emerson. So if I could map out my life in retrospect and be like, yeah, I should have started playing bass earlier. I should have taken it more seriously earlier. Sure, that does sound good. I'd be maybe further along in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, I mean, those tools, like I mentioned, I mean, even social media marketing, all that stuff that I'm doing, that's all stuff I learned at Emerson. So I wouldn't really change that.
Yeah, it's terrific. I'm glad to hear that experience has aided your overall career.
Yeah.
So then Hunter Valentine, is this the moment that you would call, making your big break, going from, regional musician into more of a national level?
Yeah, I would call it big break number one. Definitely there's been a few moments in my career where I'm like, this is what changed things. But absolutely, just joining a band that really just was already kind of successful, and by whatever standards. Just to me at that time, success meant, oh, we're going to play a show in Japan. That's successful. Now it's like, oh, well, I maybe need this or this to make this worth my time. But at that time, that was it. So like I said, it gave me an introduction. Touring on a bus is a whole different beast, and you have things to learn when you're on your first bus tour, and getting those things out of the way early. And now I have that experience. It definitely, I would consider that the first big break.
So take us from Hunter Valentine to where you got the Demi Lovato gig.
Yeah. So basically, Hunter Valentine, I was in that band until 2016. So we were touring, out of New York, just pretty consistently until 2016. At that point, they decided to call it quits. So like I mentioned, they were kind of already on a roll by the time I joined. So 2016, they were throwing in the towel. They decided, we're going to pursue other interests at this point. We've been doing this for a while. So I, at that point, was kind of excited to have this kind of new, I'm a free agent now. I can try this hired gun thing and see what other bands I can join. So pretty quickly, I moved out of New York because I knew, like we talked about, well, LA is the place to be for what I want to be doing. So at that point, I moved to LA, and that was just the hustle. That was just like I was doing all the, the Viper Room, the Sunset Jam. I was doing the Whiskey Jam, Ultimate Jam Night, all of those things. I was just doing whatever I could to meet as many people as I could, just like constantly networking, constantly marketing myself, playing a lot of shows. So I did the math. I think it was like, with 60 different artists in the first couple of years of living in LA, just like playing with anyone I could, any show, any venue, getting my name out there. And it does work. I mean, it takes a little bit of time, but when I look back now, I know a person I met on a tour in 2018 introduced me to a certain musical director, and that person put my name in for Demi. And that is like, it's just the path. And it does take time to build your reputation. But that's the path. So I met some people, and by the time I got the Demi gig, Stacey Jones, the musical director I mentioned, he knew who I was. So that was by last year. He gave me the call for Demi, and that was, yeah, like I said, it's just kind of hard work paying off, and shaking a lot of hands and making a lot of impressions, and always making a good impression. I mean, no matter what size gig you're doing, making the best impression you can was something I figured out quickly, and it did pay off.
Terrific. Well, that sounds like, words of wisdom for all you young players, trying to jump into the scene,
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, let's take a pause right here and take a message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. Attention guitar players, join the thimble slide revolution and free your slide finger. The thimble slide is a mini guitar slide designed to be worn on the tip of your finger, about 3/4 of the way down your fingernail. When worn there, you can still bend your finger, and most importantly, it's allowing enough of your fingertip through so you can press the guitar strings. The thimble slide is larger at the back and smaller at the front, so it follows the contour of your finger. So when you're wearing the slide, it's not loose or rattling around on your fingertip. This also allows your other fingertips in nice and close for playing. The sizing gap allows you to make the slide a little bit larger or a little bit smaller for a nice custom fit. So while you're wearing a thimble slide, you can, of course, use it as a slide. But more importantly, it allows you to still fret the strings so you can play the guitar. You can play chords. You can play lines while wearing it. You can bend strings with your ring finger. You can drag your fingertip across the strings if you need to. You can do pull-offs, hammer-ons. So there you go. You can actually still really do all the things you need to do to keep playing guitars like that. With its patented shape, you can slide and fret while wearing the thimble slide. Visit thimbleslide.com. That's thimbleslide.com. Welcome back to Rock Music Alliance interview sessions. Being a guitar player myself, I've got to ask you about Nita Strauss. She's one of the world's top guitar players. How was it working with her and getting to know her?
It was amazing. I mean, I definitely, like we've been talking about, being a hired gun was the path I wanted to take for a while. So I obviously knew who she was before I started, and she was a great example for me when I was kind of figuring things out back in New York and planning my move to LA. It was like, okay, this is someone that is doing something I want to do. So I was definitely kind of keeping my eye on her. So meeting her and working with her, I mean, what I'll say about Nita is just I haven't really met anyone that works as hard as Nita. That is, and I think this is something within the industry is a lot of people are talented, of course. Like there's a lot of talented people, but it's really what sets you apart is how hard you're willing to work and the professionalism you bring to a situation. And like I said, I mean, I really haven't met anyone that works as hard as her, and she really is inspiring in that way. I mean, we're on the road and we have a day off, but it's not a day off for Nita. She's flying out to do a clinic, and then she's just constantly working in this way that's really admirable. So Yeah, that's my number one thing. I mean, we're friends now. I mean, I'm lucky to just say, we're friends. I'm so glad the tour brought us together. But that was my first impression of her was just like she really has a good business head on her shoulders, and she knows how to kind of work the industry. It's great.
And who knows where that contact may lead over the course of your careers.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about gear. Do you have a favorite bass, and what's your rig?
Yeah, my favorite bass is a Fender P bass. I mean, that's my favorite bass just in general, but my favorite specific bass is one that my dad actually gave me only a couple years before he passed away. My very first bass was his bass. It was just his bass that, like I said, he found at a tag sale and just kind of that was just the bass in our house. And I still do have that bass, but he got me a bass kind of as like a realization like, wow, you're still doing this thing. Like I'm gonna buy you a nice bass, your first bass. And it's this 2008 Blizzard Pearl P bass. And he gave that to me, and the kind of wild story I think about with that is it came with a flight case. Like it was the case that came with the bass happened to be a case designed for flying. And I remember him saying to me like, oh, this is for when you start flying around the world for your gigs. And it, at the time, I know that sounds like of course now, but like at the time that was just like, oh my God, as if, that's never going to happen. I'm over here playing my local shows. And here I am. I've flown around the world with it, and it's so wild. And that is my favorite bass. So Fender P bass. I also I play a Schecter now, and I play a Hofner on stage, but Fender P bass will always be home for me as far as gear.
Yeah, that's massively sentimental thing going on there. That's terrific.
Definitely.
Yeah. What do you think about amp modelers like Kemper and Fractal? I mean, it seems like a lot of people are using them on the road these days. What do you think about them? And would you use something like that for your bass?
Yes, I happen to love them. I know it's sort of people have different opinions on them. Here's the thing. I love pedals as well. I love to just like rack up a bunch of pedals and play around and have that. And I have been using regular stomp pedals for, all of my career until last year. I have the Line 6 HX Stomp for my bass. It is a smaller version of the Line 6 pedal board that a lot of guitarists use. The thing that I love about it, when you're a hired gun, you enter a new gig, and this goes for all modelers. When you enter a new gig, you don't always have the right gear. So I spent a lot of time with other gigs where I'd get, oh, this gig is more psychedelic kind of pop. So I need a new chorus pedal because this isn't really working out. So I'd have to go and get a chorus pedal. Great, added to my collection. But now it's just every gig, you got to get that tone right. It's so important to get the tone right. And the more gigs you do, it's just like you just need endless gear to get the tone right until you get an amp modeler. And so this is where that comes into play for me as a hired gun. It's just like digitally, you're able to dial in some tones that I couldn't get with the pedals that I own. So that was what was really important. So I started to use an amp modeler, I played with Marina. I did a Europe tour with her last year. And that was a gig where the tones were just all across the board for the whole set. And I was like, I can't realistically bring this many pedals to Europe. I have to minimize. I have to just have something. And the HX Stomp saved my life. I mean, it was just perfect. And so I've really had to study it. I've had to read the manual. I've had to go on YouTube and watch videos of people programming. But now I'm so confident in my programming abilities for tone that any gig, I just think any gig could come my way, and I'm like, I can get that tone in this amp. And it's amazing. So
Yeah.
sometimes, I of course miss that rumble. There are ways around it. On the Demi tour, we did have a little speaker under my riser just so I could feel my bass rumble a little bit. And they make rumble pads. They make all kinds of stuff for you to really feel it. But I am a huge fan. I think once you hit a certain level, you need every option at your disposal. So you get that call and you're like, yes, I can make that tone. And that's what amp modelers are really amazing for.
It's good for live. It's really good for
Definitely.
live. Because
Definitely.
you're ready. Like you always sound the same. You don't have to worry about
Yes,
if the knobs move around.
definitely. Definitely.
So tell us about your home studio. What kind of a setup do you have there?
Yeah, it's pretty minimal. So like I said before, the focus has always been playing for other people. When I've done kind of my own stuff for my own session work from home, it's pretty much into headphones. I live in an apartment, in Hollywood, so this is definitely not a place where I'm trying to make a lot of noise. I've got my AKG headphones I use. I use an M audio interface with 2 inputs. So when I'm tracking bass, I go right into Ableton in my laptop. And I do everything in there. Everything I need to do, I'm just doing right in my laptop. The dream for me someday is to just have a big home studio, but not quite there yet. For now, it's just straight into the laptop.
Well, it's amazing what you can do these days with just a very simple setup. I mean, just like the amp modeling and all that has miniaturized everything into just a little setup. It's the same thing it is for computers.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. I also will say, and it kind of goes back to my responsibilities as band leader on the Demi tour. There were moments when I had to do some quick vocal changes on the background vocals. So we recorded all of our background vocals. And there was a moment where, we need to kind of make this one update. I'm in my hotel room with my tiny little, I had a little interface, just one plug with the microphone, made these changes. They were ready for the stage in an hour. I can't even think of, without technology like that, having to, I don't know, outsource it, have someone at home do it. I don't even know what I would have done.
Yeah, sometimes I look back on film or video of the great progressive rock bands of the 70s, right? And I'm in awe of I can't believe listen to what these guys are doing with that gear. It's incredible. It's incredible, Hey, Claudio, really I've seen you gig. I've seen you perform, and you've got all kinds of stuff loaded into your laptop. So how is that working for you?
Well, I like it because I have the best sounds, and they're right there. I don't have to worry about bringing heavy keyboards. I have 2 controllers. Sometimes I have 3 controllers.
Nice.
And I use one synth for solos, a minimal type of stuff. But yeah, it's easy for live because you just press a button and all the programs are there.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about going to your keyboard and programming. While you're playing, you have to go this and that. Sometimes I used to play, and I just at the same time I had to,
totally.
You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't even need to stomp on my pedal now. I mean, we're all set up with MIDI. It's I'm just up there. I program the tones, and then they get set up, and I'm not even touching anything up there. I'm just getting to enjoy it and play.
Yeah, I've personally had some nice
MIDI to play.
setups.
You don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I've had some nice MIDI setups, but I've never had the experience of a sequencer changing it for me. I've always had to still stomp on it.
Yes, this was my first experience with that, and you get used to it fast. Just up there, not even worrying about it.
Well, so what's next for Leanne Bose? What do you want to accomplish in the next in your career over the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the leadership of being the band leader and musical director. So I think definitely kind of continuing to expand my roster of gigs with that title is something I'm excited to do. Working with different artists as a musical director is something that really interests me. It really plays to my skill sets, I'm finding. So definitely that. I mean, continuing to touring is my favorite thing. So while I'm leveling up as musical director sounds really nice, I still want to be out there playing bass as much as I can, for as long as I can. So right now, making sure my schedule is full for the year is just the goal, and beyond. So the next 2 to 5 years, just being busy, doing what I love. I mean, that's kind of it. That's the goal, is to just continue having this incredible opportunity, which is this, passion is my job. I feel very fortunate to have that.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly wish you good luck with that, and I hope you get to write more of your music as well and get that out there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are you gonna be at NAMM?
Yes, I will be at NAMM.
So pass by to see us.
Yeah, definitely I will.
That'd be great to see you down there, that's for sure. And I'll show you my thimble slide.
Perfect. I was reading about that. That's great.
Oh, thanks. Well, Leanne, that brings us to the end of our show time today. And, thanks for being our guest here on the Rock Music Alliance interview sessions. To keep in touch with Leanne, check her out at leannekbose .com, and of course on social media. I'm Cole Coleman, and for Claudio Pesavento, the Rock Music Alliance, and the RMA Awards, thanks for watching and listening. Visit us at rockmusicalliance.com and check out this year's RMA Awards for rock, metal, and progressive rock music.